These niggas ain't bigger than me. These niggas ain't Nas, ain't Jigger than me. These niggas ain't M, they ain't 50 to me. You ain't Pun, you ain't Pop, you ain't Biggie to me. These niggas ain't Crips, they ain't 60s to me. These niggas ain't Bloods, they ain't dripping with me. Niggas talking that shit by the new generation, man. Fuck these niggas, I slash your fucking faces. You niggas ain't so shit, not an album or a rock. Pussy nigga putting rings on my old bitch. Dick down the throat ass niggas, old hoe ass niggas. Happy cause you went gold ass niggas. These niggas ain't spitting with me, you ain't sicker than me. Fuck out my section, you ain't sitting with me. This for very important people, it's clear that we not equal. Clear you niggas faggots, I'm the Black Marshall Matt. Like yin 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 on a motherfucker. Who needs Hulk Hogan when you got Sting on this motherfucker? Less than 5 albums, kiss the ring on this motherfucker. California throne and I'm the king on this motherfucker. I don't wanna hear it. Weak ass lyrics, crying on the hook, thinking we gon' feel it. Oh, lost ass niggas, voice crack when you talk ass nigga, rolling blunts for the boss ass niggas. I came in with Ye, Jeezy and boss ass niggas. Your freshman cover a whole bunch of soft ass niggas. Tampon lyricists evacuate the premises. Mute BET ciphers cause I don't wanna hear that shit. May you rest in piss, you fuck niggas. Hey Frank Ocean, go ahead, fuck these fuck niggas. Yeah, they fuck niggas. Ain't no 3 stacks in your class, so take your top 10 spot and shove it up your ass, bitch boy. Niggas already fucked your bitch, you bitch boy. And every time you kiss on that hoe, you suck my dick, you bitch boy. And when you buy that hoe a bag, that bitch carry my bricks, you bitch boy.
All right. So, ETM Hotel, Rennie Sean, welcome in peace. My name is Sean. I'd like to thank everybody for tuning into Science with Sean. It's your boy Sean P in the place to be. Before we get started today, I do want to, not only am I going to recap the previous video that we did, I am also going to I need to deal with something more specifically that kind of comes to my attention under the banner of a lot of people's feelings. And I'm going to address that because I don't care about people's feelings. This is an information channel. This ain't no, I'm not a psychiatrist. I'm not a sociologist, or none of that. We deal with science, methodology, history. We deal with a little bit of this, a little bit of that. But everything that we do is to get to the orientation of proper conclusions based on sound information and not feelings. I don't care about your feelings. I don't care about your attachment to whatever you want to claim. None of that matters to me. I argue with everybody. So don't feel special. I don't care if you feel it. Well, if you want to feel special, feel special. I don't care. That's personal. But when it comes to the information, disseminating information and getting to the truth, I am of the position of sticking to and finding truth. Through truth, we will find our ultimate selves, and we will be able to liberate our consciousness through proper research methodology and education. And that way we can take care of our households, our neighborhoods, our communities, and such. Peace to everybody that's tapping in. I appreciate y'all tapping in. I'm pretty sure a few other people are going to join a little bit later on once we get into all the other things. My intent and purpose of this particular video 1 and video 2 is not to get in the way of a debate that's up and coming that has nothing to do with me and is neither none of my business, but to get to, I've been sitting on this for a couple of years, but I wanted to get to a point of a lot of people personality worshiping. I don't care nothing about how you feel about people. What I do care about is if the people you care about is telling you the truth or not. Because I think that you should see all sides of an argument instead of your biased perspective or your feelings about a person because of what they say and it feels good to you. So if you think that I care about how you feel about somebody, I don't lose no sleep. None of that really matters to me at all. When you're being lied to, I'm going to tell you that you're being lied to. When someone's telling you the truth, I'm going to tell you that someone's telling the truth. If someone's information is questionable, I'm going to tell you that someone's information is questionable. The end all be all is as I'm not a part of the establishment. I've argued with everyone that is a part of the establishment. So I don't care. And I let it be known that I don't care. I have noticed that when I do go at particular people, some of the people that is in support of those particular people, they're against it. But depending on who I may say things about, people are for it. But see, whether you're for it or against it, I don't care either way. Because I'm not into personality worshiping. That gets us as African Americans and Africans in the diaspora and just people that's supposedly coming into consciousness nowhere. So how you feel about someone is irrelevant to me. I don't care. I watched so Garfield replay on part 1. I watched the chat room very close before I ever commented. I caught wind of it because Rocky was laughing because of the way I started the video out with the music and all of that stuff. And you know, I noticed, I was just reading and I was noticing these inner arguments that constantly happen in the chat room. And in this particular sense, a lot of people who look at Jabari as a quote unquote master teacher and their fearless leader and priest was really defensive because of what they perceived to be was something disingenuous. It was not disingenuous at all. The reason why I wasn't disingenuous because nobody was saying anything. The little things that I did say in the particular video ultimately was overshadowed by Jabari speaking for himself and his wife. The truth of the matter is simply this: if you want to call yourself a priest, you have to know the language. Period. If you're going to call yourself a Kemetic priest, you better know the Egyptian spoken language, and you better know the Sesh. You better know how to transliterate and translate a text. But in any attempt, you are left to defend your claim and your position on your own merit. So my new approach is to allow the information to build from the opposing side and just point you into directions of the points of contention, and then we can mount disagreements. because I've realized that a lot of people are really emotional, and I don't give a damn about your emotions. And a lot of people don't like me, so I just add to the pot. I don't care. I don't call myself a comedic priest. It's bullshit. Something they made up in the United States. A lot of the doctrines that are being disseminated around as if it's African spirituality are made in the United States. And with your disingenuousness and the way you behave and act in these YouTube streets is subject for scrutiny. Personally, is the guy a horrible person? No. Do I trust him? No. I think he's disingenuous? Yes. Do I think his information is solid? No. Does he appeal to authority? Absolutely. Does he act like an authority? Yes. With no command of the language. How can you understand the culture and its entirety and its intent if you don't? You can't say, well, my wife does. That shit doesn't fly in academia. That is not scholarly at all if we're trying to carry ourselves in the light. Now, I understand that people personality worship, cool with me. I'm not looking for 10,000 viewers. I'm not looking for 2,000 people in my chat. Like I said, I attack everybody. I don't play the favoritism. I don't do you're off limits. I'm the real definition of anybody can get it. I don't say you can get it and then anybody can get it and then I withdraw that. That ain't me. I take it however it come. I'm not for people to really like me like that. But I do know this: in the future, any person that comes into conscious or crosses path on my particular channel or shows my videos, they will appreciate my honesty and they will appreciate some of my approach and they will respect me a little bit more because I went out of my way to do something that other people wouldn't do. So with that being said, man, for everybody that love Garfield, more power to you. If you want to follow the cult of Garfield, for everybody that want to follow the cult of, I'm doing this for a reason. The cult of Jabari, go ahead, follow the cult of Jabari. It's none of my business. The cult of Ankh, the cult of Smash, none of my business. That's personal. That's on you if you're into that. And it's unfortunate that we do have people that are out there like that, but it is what it is. You can appreciate and respect those brothers, but still be up for challenging their information and scrutinize what they're telling you. And if you're not scrutinizing what they're telling you and you're just appreciating the bullshit, then the onus is back on you. It's no longer the fault of the person that is persuading you to think either way, because you didn't do your work or due diligence. So enough of the rambling, man. We're going to get into part 2 of this video. But just to recap part 1, I wanted to kind of go through things. So what I did was already lay out a foundation for people to properly follow and understand in the whole midst of this whole thing. Now, I did realize that a lot of people knew nothing about this lecture. Nothing. And I did tell people that the lecture did cost $50. I have the receipt. The lecture the video called, the DVD cost $50 plus shipping. I know anyone else who may have a problem with the information. I don't know of anyone else that may have contention with the information that's in this particular bill. Whether you have a problem with the price or the product, you can express yourself. I don't think anyone is expressing themselves. They're taking it as it is, and it is what it is. So in disc number 1, I'm wiping my screen. In disc number 1, he talked about sacred symbols a lot. He did that in disc number 1. He talked about recontextualization, which was something that he threw out. And he talked about remythologizing. I don't know why he did that, but he talked about remythologizing. And he also talked about funerary culture based on ancient Kemet. And he talked about of course, they went to the museum. Remember, he brought up Nicolas Cage. Says Nicolas Cage tombstone was a pyramid and yada yada yada. A whole bunch of nothing that had anything to do with African origins of Christianity. Now, I'm just jogging people's memory real quick because I need you to know where we're at in this particular video. However, has Nicolas Cage affiliated himself with a religious practice and belief? We don't know. So why would he show us Nicolas Cage? Other points of contention in video 1 was Catholic Church greatest resource is ancient Kemet, the Black Madonna statue, resurrection, Christianity, Judaism, and Islam have their origins in ancient Kemet. Russia, India, Germany practices Kemetic spirituality. Ancient Kemet earliest source for the afterlife and resurrection. He showed no sources to Russia, India, and Germany practice Kemetic spirituality. You never defined what Kemetic spirituality was. When you did, it was kind of fair. And you didn't even provide any sourced information to show that Russians. You said Russians, Russians, Indians, and Germans. You didn't show anything. Other points of contention was Ramesses is the mediated form, the first Trinity, the whole section of the Bible found on the walls of Kemet. I don't know how you come up with that. Set became Satan. That's the biggest crock, right? You said thousands of years of the image would take an image of him in his crib with his mother and put it outside the great temples to commemorate the birth of Heru. The manger scene comes from Kemet and Heru's birthday, which you claim is the 25th. You talked about the spittle to heal the wounds. And, you talked about the virgin birth. Offset and Mary virgin birth. You also claimed the offset was called Mary the Beloved, similar to Mary offset responsible for the transmission of Kemetic spirituality. Symbolisms of Mary wearing a tit knot amulet and the papyrus of grapes. Now, this is where we are. We're about to deal with the papyrus of grapes and the whole 9 yizzle. So, without further ado, I see we got a few more people in the building. I don't know if he's live or who's live. That's none of my business. I don't know if these people are live. I don't know. So we got 4 videos right here. We're about to get into disc 2, video 1.
Let's talk briefly about Ast. Ast, you probably know more as Isis. But Ast was known as the mother of God, Mutantur. That's how they called her, Mutantur. She gives birth to the Savior by a virgin birth because her husband is dead. So she has to do this without actually having physical congress with him. And so she gives birth to the Savior by a virgin birth. You can see an image of her giving birth here. And this is her receiving the seed this is another way that they tell the myth, that she flies over the body of Asar and receives his seed in order for her to be able to give birth to Heru. Now, one of the things that I think is very interesting is because of her loving marriage and motherhood, often people who were living in Kemet during the time that she was popular, they did not say that they didn't call her Ast often. They would just use a particular term for her. She was the beloved one. And the word for love in Kemet, is actually myrrh. Say myrrh with me. And so because the word for love is myrrh, she was called Mary. Yes, she was called Mary. Very similar to the name Mary, by the way. I think it's interesting that in the Bible, when you listen to Bible scholars, they often say that her name is Miriam, but where do you see the name Miriam in the Bible? They call her Mary. And so this is an important distinction. Why would you call someone of such status by a nickname? And that's because, once again, the echo of Kemet is right at our feet. All we need to do is bend down to drink its cool waters, and we'll be able to see where this comes from. She is also the major character in the original depiction of the mother and child, Madonna and child, as we talked about earlier. Here's another Black Madonna statue. They're actually very beautiful, I think. I mean, look at the material this is made out of. It's absolutely incredible. And they're individuals, priests, that have to bathe these statues, clothe the statues. This is the same exact thing that happened in Kemetic temples for thousands of years. Thousands of years. The priests would be responsible for caring for the statues. She is also probably the archetype for the concept of the weeping wife. And so we see these. This is the Pieta by Michelangelo here. I think it's by Michelangelo. But this is you can see she has, in this instance, her son on her lap. And Ast was usually depicted in tears, primarily because her husband was murdered. But she's still the archetype for the weeping wife. There are many statues and images of her in mourning. And it would have given, think about what this means. It would have given solace to people as they're going about their tribulations and they have difficult times. They would think about how Ast got through. And they would know that, listen, I know that this has been the most difficult experience for me, but think about the story of what happened with Ast, Asar, and Heru, and the way they were victorious. And so certainly this is part and parcel of this story. She also conceals Heru during the journey to ensure his safety. That's another very important part of the story. We talked about that already. And she's actually more responsible for the transmission of Kemetic spirituality, I would argue, than any other deity after the fall of Kemet. So the focus on Ast goes all throughout the world. They're uncovering temples as far away as Russia, India, Germany. They were temples to Ast. They called them at that time temples to Isis. And we'll talk about why that's important here, because they were using Isis and recognized that the largest temple was actually in Paris, well, was in France. And when the temple was crumbled, they built a great city on the ruins of that temple. And that temple was called Per, which means temple, Isis. So it was a temple of Isis. This is where they probably get the name for the great city they built on top of it, Paris. How many of you knew that whenever you hear the name of the greatest city, perhaps in all of the European world, that it encodes the name of a great African mother? Now, I'll tell you, the French have a very interesting relationship with Kemet. This church is known as Saint Sulpice. Say Saint Sulpice with me, because I hope that you'll do research on this later as well. In the back of the church, what do you see? What is this? Give me the ancient African term. Come on. A tekken. A tekken. Now, why is a tekken in a church? It's not just decoration, folks. This tekken played one of the most important roles in all of the Christian world. Why? Because they used it to monitor the summer noon sun at its height and the winter noon sun at its height. So that during winter at noon, the highest point, it would actually shine. This diagram is actually not exactly correct. It would shine to the top of the tekken. And then during the summer noon sun at its height, it would shine at a place on the floor which is demarcated. Why? Because all of the feasts in the Roman Catholic Church are actually dictated by celestial bodies. That's the reason why many of them move. Now, I know sometimes people say, I remember someone saying to me, I'm a Christian, I'm not into astrology. I said, well, I'm not exactly into astrology either, but the Roman Catholic Church is really focused a lot on the focus of the celestial bodies. No, it's not. I said, okay. Why don't you go ask your pastor why Easter moves every year. He said, ask my pastor. I said, yeah, ask your pastor why Easter moves every year. And when he asked his pastor that, he said, well, we decide where Easter is going to be because it's the first Sunday after the spring full moon. Really? So you mean Easter is based on where the full moon lies? Is this not celestial focus and celestial veneration? If you don't go deeper, you'll never know. And so certainly it's critically important in France as well. And then, as I said, Mary Magdalene sports a tiet in paintings. Now this is the tiet symbol. Say tiet with me. Tiet. It looks like an ankh with its arms laying down. It is the symbol of Ast. In fact, sometimes they call it the belt buckle of Ast. And some folks say, honestly, we don't really know what the symbol is referencing. But it's believed that it may reference the menstruation cycle of women. That's one of the reasons why it's usually depicted in red. And these loops, sometimes people say, look like they're supposed to be referencing fallopian tubes. We don't really know what it means, but that's the best guess that we can come up with. So this is a symbol that has been connected to us for thousands of years. Thousands of years. This is a Greek, actually this is a Roman version of Ast. And she has this, or this is the tiet in the middle of her garment, right here. She carries what the Romans call the sistrum. We call this shasheta. Say shasheta with me. Shasheta. That is actually the rattle that they use. And the Kemetic people said that it had a divine sound that they would use in temples. Today, we don't use a shasheta. We just use a tambourine. And in West Africa, they use a shekere. But it's the same concept, that it's a very divine sound. And she carries this urn as well. Now, in this very popular painting, you'll actually see this is another Madonna and Child painting. But I think it's interesting because Mary Magdalene is here depicted as an adult with Jesus as a babe. So it's very interesting that that's how it's depicted. But if you look closer at Mary Magdalene, this is what you'll see. She's wearing the tiet and carrying the urn. So this artist believed that Mary Magdalene should have been a priestess to us. The echoes are all around us if you're able to recognize the symbols. Hopefully we'll give you an understanding of some of those symbols today. Now let's look at Asar. And I say he's a partial archetype for Jesus. Asar was the major character for resurrection for over 4,000 years. 4,000 years. Twice as old as the Christ myth is to us. That's amazing. And worshipers who successfully sought the afterlife actually were then called Asar. So you became Asar. And we showed you this image before, but in the writing here, they will then, Heru will actually call you, and greeting Asar, he'll call you by your first name and Asar, because now you've actually become Asar. So the concept of resurrection was uniquely connected to Asar for many, many years. He's also the archetype for mummification. Because he was cut into these pieces, his wife and her sister had to bandage him together. And so this is where mythologically the concept of mummification, I'll call it sahuification, because we didn't call those preserved bodies mummies, we called them Sa or Sahu. Say Sahu with me. So definitely he is the archetype for it. Look at this old statue of Asar. It's absolutely beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. And
my apologies. I know Garfield might be trying to replay this or whatever the case may be. And I understand. So he says the name of this is Sahuification. Let's just see if we can find a dictionary word. I'm just trying to see if we can find a word. Satu. Hold on. Just give me a second, ladies and gentlemen. I hate to, I hate to break the bill, but I'm just trying to learn from Jabari because apparently he is smarter than all of us. He knows things that we don't know. And he's talking about a language, right, that he doesn't study. It's the Sahu with the capital H. Let's see. Or is the Sahu with the lower? Because he made up a word, that, you know what I mean? Sahu. Let me try it this way with the lowercase. Dang, my bad. Lowercase. And see how many words we get. 13. The deceased nobles, the blessed dead. There we go. There go the word right here. Sahu. So it's lowercase a, capital H is the word. And this has many renditions. So without seeing the glyphs, right, we would assume that this would be the word that he was referring to. Let me make it bigger on the screen. The deceased nobles, the blessed dead, right? If we go back and listen to what he says again, maybe this is why he's saying that. But let's go see if we find any other renditions of the word. There's a lot of entries, and these other ones are going to have other things in front of them. But as far as the word by itself, it's depending on the glyph pattern, dependent, tread, Orion constellations, a grant land, toe, to move close, toes, Sau, worker, Sa, grant of land, endowed, so on and so forth. Let's put the W there. So we get 13 hits. Knife, right? Deceased, neighbors, dependents, Orion, framework, frame, stand, mineral, serpentine, that's got a feminine T on it. Neighbors, neighbors, neighborhood. Two more. Neighbors, framework, stand. So I just wanted to do a little mystery search, but he calls it Sahuification. Run it back.
Definitely, he is the archetype for it. Look at this old statue of Osiris. It's absolutely beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. And I think, and some people are arguing that the biblical myth of Lazarus might be an early Christian focus on Osiris. Historians now believe that it actually comes from El Asar. El was an ancient Canaanite term that was used for their divine forces. So they called, initially it was Elazar, and then it became Lazarus because of the way that the language changed. And you'll note that usually when Lazarus is depicted, he's usually depicted in bandages like Asar, which is very, very interesting, I think. something that is certainly connected to the echo of the ancient Kemetic tradition in Christianity. Asar was brutally killed and resurrected in order for us to have the opportunity to enter heaven.
What? Oh, whoa.
Sacred to him were bread or wheat, brutally killed and resurrected, and something that is certainly connected to the echo of the ancient Kemetic tradition in Christianity. Asar was brutally killed and resurrected in order for us to have the opportunity to enter heaven. Sacred to him were bread or wheat and wine. Yes, bread and wine were sacred to Asar. And you'll see in this image.
All right, let me pause it right there. So he says in bullet point number 3 that Wasir, or who he's calling Asar or Osiris, Wasir, was brutally killed and resurrected in order for us all to have an opportunity to enter the afterlife. Wasir. How much do y'all know about Wasir? Because this is significant here. You would have to go into the mythology in order to extract what all his different meanings and interpretations and personifications, because he not only was he just an underworld, but you know, he had everything to do with vegetation and things like that. So I'm a little taken back by that. Now, mind you, I've watched this plenty of times before, but every time that I watch it, it's something different every time with this stuff. Now, this right here is significant. This is telling you who is sitting on the throne. It's Wasir. And that's the face, so it'll be like her, something, but it's gonna give you some more. And then it says Necher, what is the crook? Why come I can't think of this right now? And then Jet. But all of this is right here in that. But inside of this is some glyphs. They go up and down. You have Ankh, and then is that Ankh D Neb or something? It's a repeated pattern, so it could be Ankh Ujasa Neb. I don't know. I can't make it out with this image that he's using, but probably if we had the primary, I could do a better job. But the flail and the crook, wasp, all of that. He's regaliaed up in this image. Sheesh. But anyways, he said it. So just to take people back, right here to go.
Something that is certainly connected to the echo of the ancient Kemetic tradition in Christianity. Asar was brutally killed and resurrected in order for us to have the opportunity to enter heaven. Sacred to him were bread or wheat and wine. Yes, bread and wine were sacred to Asar. And you'll see in this image here, after his death here, you'll see that wheat is growing from his body. It's a symbol of resurrection or regenerative process, even in death. And this attendant is pouring water on him to have it grow. This actually was also done in tombs. This is an image of a piece that comes directly from the tomb of Tutankhamun. I saw it for the first time a few years ago, because I've been looking for it after seeing it in books and could not find it. I saw it, and of course, I couldn't take a picture of it. So this is the one from the book. This is an image of Asar. You can see it's in his form. And the priests that were doing the ceremony would put some sprout seeds in here.
So Osiris, Wasir, or Asar, the great god who ruled the Egyptian underworld, was the eldest son of the earth god Geb and the sky goddess Nut. He and his sister consort Isis, or Aset, ruled Egypt together, or Kemet, until Wasir was struck down by his anarchical brother. Set. Wasir died and became the inert one. The gods eventually decreed that the Osiris should be resurrected as king and judge of the dead, and that his posthumous son, Horus, should be made king of the living. Wasir was usually shown as a mummified king wearing a tef crown and carrying a crook and flail. His skin can be black or green. In the image that we seen before, his skin was black in that image right there at the bottom. The colors may originally have indicated putrefaction, but they came to symbolize the connection, listen to this, of Wasir with the cycle of death and regeneration based on plant life. In the pyramid text, the dead king is frequently identified with Wasir or his stellar counterpart, Sa. You heard him say something about Sa'u, but Wasir or his stellar counterpart, Sa. By the 2nd millennium BCE, this identification was nominally extended to all the dead. Every aspect of burial and mummification came to be linked to the mythology of Wasir. Where, when, and how Wasir was the first worship is much disputed. It has been claimed that Wasir was originally a deified pre-dynastic king, a primitive vegetation spirit, a jackal god, or an early royal necropolis, or a mother goddess. Even the etymology of his name is uncertain, though it may simply mean the mighty one, death. The cult of Wasir only became prominent during the 5th dynastic period. He gradually seems to have taken over the attributes to the funerary deity, such as the Angeti of Osiris, of Kinti Amentiu, of Abydos, foremost of the Westerners. The latter's name, foremost of the Westerners, became an epithet for Wasir, indicating his leadership in spirits and demons of the Duat. At all periods, there are few texts that describe Wasir as a terrifying figure who dispatches demon messages to drag the living into the gloomy realm of the dead. In most accounts, Wasir was born wearing a crown and was chosen to succeed his father Geb by the sun god himself. A few sources allude to a violently dynastic struggle between Geb and Wasir. One late text from Kom Ombo even claims that Wasir was killed and born again after a union between his father Geb and his grandfather Shu. No detailed accounts of this reign of Osiris or manner of his death survive for the becoming the Greco-Roman period. In the pyramid text, Wasir is either struck down and trampled by his brother Set or drowned in the Nile. A double death was probably thought necessary to kill a god permanently. The relatives of Wasir have to search for, gather the body. You know the story. Later sources stress that Set was deliberately torn up the body. But in the pyramid text, it is probably natural disintegration that Set had to reverse with her magic. With the help of the Necher, Anubis, and Jehuti, the body of Wasir is preserved and became the first mummy. Now, that's just to give you a little bit of thought. I said some very interesting things here, how Wasir is personified or resembles vegetation and things of that nature. His colors, that black and that green, represent something specific. I don't know what the assertions of the brother is. I don't know what kind of assertions the brother's making here, but you know, if we just slow things down and understand what those colors are indications of, then we can clear a lot of this up. Now, the primary texts that are used as sources in what I basically provided you, you heard me say it, the pyramid text 219, 532, and 576. You also have some stuff from the Book of the Dead, plate 17. There's lines like 175, 181, 185 to 186. And then Osiris has hymns, or Wasir has hymns, and then there's some other texts that are out there that'll give you descriptions of Wasir. This is, very, very, very needed information, and people need to understand the origins of Wasir and his cult. Leadon has a book published in 1980. So you actually can get that. The name of it is what I just said, The Origins of Wasir and His Cult. If you get that text, it'll give you more description. And you remember, this is supposedly a Kemetic priest.
They pour water on it and then put that sort of pot. It's almost like a sacred chia plant, by the way, into the tomb, and they would close the tomb. And they knew that tomb, it would actually sprout in the tomb. And so it was a symbol for the positive power of resurrection and vegetation, which also Osiris is uniquely connected to.
Now, let me pause right quick, because you see on the screen, he says right here, I'm not making this up, image from papyrus of grapes responding to the nostril of Osiris. So, ladies and gentlemen, let's see if Google will provide us some type of anything, guarding grapes and other tales from papyri. Let's see. Let's just see. Now, I asked Wujau, because I was looking for this so-called papyrus of grapes. And I asked Wujau prior, not to drag him into it or anything like this, but a long time ago, I was asking him, has he ever heard of a papyrus of grapes? He says, no, I never heard of a papyrus of grapes. And I'm trying to figure out still, what can we extract? This just says guarding grapes and other tales from papyri. Much ado about grape harvest, a letter from Apollonius, Egyptian grapes. The ancient Egyptians were wonderful traders. They traded gold, papyrus lining, and a grain of cedar, blah, 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 blah. Papyrus thank you cards with envelopes of grapes. Grapes of ancient Egypt, some of these things, bunch of grapes. You just want to try to find something basic that you can read, understand, and then build upon. But they don't take you to anything called a papyrus of grapes. He says that there was an image, and this image referred to, look what the video says. The video says, image from papyrus of grapes responding to the nostril of Wasir. And, that don't look like no grapes anyway in this particular scene. None in this particular scene. I would like to see more evidence of that claim. There's a lot of claims and not a lot of evidence. And I'm not trying to go too far into certain things, but we would have found something basically interesting on the papyrus. If there's a papyrus of grapes, as much eyes that's on ancient Kemet right now, we would be able to uncover it and deal with it. I don't know if this will get played back, but sheesh. Yeah, I'm not making this up. There's his claim.
And then finally, you should also recognize that the star that rises in the east is sometimes seen as a symbol of both Asar and As. And we know the star rising in the east in Revelations 22:16, it actually says, Jesus is the morning star. This is a reference to him being connected to Sephet in the Bible. And so this morning star, sometimes the Kemetic people would say that it was the seed being spewed by Asar in order to create Heru. And so recognize how important this story is, and how these stories have been taken into Christianity. Now, as we continue, what we're going to do is we're then going to talk about what happens when Kemet has a great fall, and it becomes the concepts of Kemet before the fall and immediately after the fall.
Let me go back because I don't know how long the screen wasn't showing for y'all. I don't know if it just happened or whatnot, but I do want to make it make sense. My screen wasn't showing for a while, huh? Nope, y'all seen that. Seen that. All right, so let me take it back to where I basically stopped. And I want to show y'all again this whole thing about papyruses.
Sort of pot. It's almost like a sacred chia plant, by the way, into the tomb, and they would close the tomb. And they knew that tomb, it would actually sprout in the tomb. And so it was a symbol for the positive power of resurrection and vegetation, which.
So here you have it, as I just mentioned, the image from the papyrus of grapes. This is supposed to be an image from the papyrus of grapes. So what I basically did was I just tried to do a little Google search to see if I could find a papyrus of grapes. I've done this before, and I haven't found anything that would get into anything about papyrus of grapes at all. You can go and look on your own merit, and you can try to find something that resembles some type of papyrus of grapes. Let's see if we can go Osiris, papyrus of grapes, right? You know, just to kind of give credence to something to see if we could find anything resembling or having anything to do with him and grapes. And, you know, basically, it's a struggle. A lot of this information is a struggle. Look, is this would this be, look, Isis and wine. But see, I knew about wine because Sinet Emiket, she did a whole presentation on Sabre University, you know, a little nice little lecture and test on how wine is made, but in ancient Kemet. And it was beautiful. I think if you're unfamiliar with that and you have an interest in ancient Kemet and you want to know more, you should go to Sabre University, sign up, take the free course from Sister Emiket, and learn a little something about wine in ancient Kemet, how it was made, so on and so forth. But man, the papyrus of grapes, this is new information. This is the second this is the second time he's done something new to y'all right here. The Brooklyn Magic is in.
Also Osiris is uniquely connected to. And then finally, you should also recognize that the star that rises in the east is sometimes seen as a symbol of both Asar and As. And we know the star rising in the east in Revelations 22:16, it actually says, Jesus is the morning star. This is a reference to him being connected to Sephet in the Bible. And so the morning star, sometimes the Kemetic people would say that it was the seed being spewed by Asar in order to create Heru. So recognize how important this story is, and how these stories have been taken into Christianity. Now, as we continue, what we're going to do is we're then going to talk about what happens when Kemet has a great fall, and it becomes the concepts of Kemet before the fall and immediately after the fall get dispersed in the rest of the Mediterranean world. This is an important part of the story, folks. And in my maturity, I now recognize that I needed to remember the name of Isis. Even though she wasn't the name of my mother, I need to recognize what other people called her. So that as they venerated Isis, I recognized they were actually calling my mother. And so we'll talk about that in our next section. As we resume, this is an important part of the story that is often not told. Ancient Kemet, the wisdom of ancient Kemet, a wisdom that accumulated over possibly tens of thousands of years, but at the very least, we know that it accumulated over the course of about 9,000 years. If we look at some of the earliest sites that show a high-tech, high civilization that existed in ancient Kemet. We're talking about something that occurred for a very long period of time, but eventually all good things must come to an end. And so we're going to talk a little bit about what happened near the time that Kemet's time was almost up, and then what happened after. Because if you know that story, you'll even be able to understand what happens in its link to Christianity even more in depth. So you see here in the image, an image of a star on your left and Dionysus on your right. So let's continue. As Kemet remains one of the most powerful nations in the known world for several millennia, its spiritual cosmology serves as a major influence for virtually all of the nations in its region. And so you can imagine that as coming forth as one of the earliest and most significant nations, in fact, some folks say it is the first nation, what ends up happening is its influence it reverberates all throughout the entire Mediterranean. Now, people don't always recognize the importance of this patch of land to the spiritual practices of virtually everyone on the planet. Within that region, you have the origins of Judaism, the origins of Christianity, and the origins of Islam. And all of them, because they come from that region, a region that was dominated, that was led by Kemet for such a long time, it should be expected that they will bear the echo of ancient Kemet. And so that's exactly what occurred due to the prominence of Ta Meri, the beloved land, ancient Kemet. Here you're seeing an image of Asar in his Sahufied form. Maybe you might not have noticed that he's usually depicted bound in this way. That's because they're referencing him going into the afterlife. This is after he is resurrected. So he's bound because he was Sahufied by Ast. And then you see Ast next to him with Heru on her lap. I love this particular image because you often don't see statuary where Ast and Asar are together. I'm not exactly sure why you don't find it very often, but it's something that we need to bring back into being because it also encodes the importance of family. This story is about the importance of family and the power of family to endure. I don't want this to become strictly an astro-archaeological story. I want it to don't want it to become strictly a historical story, because the myth, the myth that's at the surface is important as well, because it tells us much about what we're supposed to do, how we're supposed to interact with each other, and who we should be. And so certainly this story is also about the endurance of family. The mystery system tradition becomes ubiquitous throughout the entire Mediterranean region. Now, what is the mystery system? Someone want to hazard an answer to that question? Alchemy is part of it, certainly. Essentially, the mystery system was a concept that you could actually be led from being an average human being with average problems, with an average understanding of the world around you, simply dealing with your emotions, simply dealing with whatever came to you, and you could go through a process of revelation. There were stages to an initiation, and those stages would allow you to become a divine being. Often these traditions...
Where would that information be located in any text? Because you said mystery systems. So if you have knowledge of it, then that means we should have knowledge of it too, because this information is no longer a mystery. Just a question.
Traditions had at least 4 major stages: baptism of earth, baptism through water, baptism through air, and baptism through fire. In fact, if you really want to go through a mind bend, look at the movie Avatar again after I've said that to you. Because I guarantee you, once I saw the movie and I realized that he was encoding some sacred myth there, I started doing some research on James Cameron and found out that he considers himself a Mediterranean biblical scholar. I was like, wow, it's blown me away that this is probably what he was actually doing. So you could watch a movie and enjoy the explosions and the incredible graphics, or you go deeper. And that's exactly how spirituality occurs. That's not saying that the explosions and the graphics aren't important, that they're not enjoyable, or that you should feel ignorant for focusing on the upper level. But there are times that you need to go deeper. Because we know that with all of the things that we experience in our lives today, if we don't have a profound connection to the world of spirit, how in the world can you survive? And so that is what we see occurring throughout the mystery traditions as they occur in the Mediterranean. Come on. There you go. Now, the mystery traditions in the Mediterranean are in the nations throughout the Mediterranean. And often when people notice that there are similarities between the study of ancient Kemet and their spiritual system in ancient Kemet, they don't always recognize that the mystery traditions are a retelling of the process of initiation that occurred in the Kemetic temple. That's what it was. And so later, after other people from other regions were able to enter into the Kemetic temple and be initiated, they learned some things and took it forward. And then what they did was they reinterpreted according to their own cultural mores. We'll talk about that in a few moments too. But I'm not the only one that's going to tell you that the mystery system has their origins in Kemet. Listen to Herodotus, who some consider the father of history. He says, and I quote, "Melampus was the one who taught the Greeks the name of Dionysus. It was from him that the Greeks learned to bear the phallus along in honor of Dionysus. I will not say that what is done in Egypt in connection with the god and what is done among the Greeks are originated independently, for they would then be of an Hellenic character and not recently introduced." In other words, he's acknowledging that Greece is quite young. And he's saying, look at this structure. Clearly it comes from an older place. And I'm arguing that it comes from Kemet. Now, it's interesting that Herodotus might have actually gone through a mystery system as well. There's sometimes when he describes things that he finds, and he says things like, it's imprudent for me to say this.
All right, so that is the opening of video disc 2, which he deals with the virgin birth. The claims of Osset was called the beloved, similar to Mary Osset, responsible for transmission of Kemetic spirituality. The symbolisms of wearing the teat, the knot amulet, and the papyrus of grapes. Among some other things that I can add in here as points of contention would then be the the whole claim about Wasir, what the Greens, all of that references to him. So to move on, we heard mystery systems. We continue to hear mystery systems. We're about to hear the Serapis argument. Jesus' story was told several times, thousands of years earlier. I don't know why. Yeah, there you go. Boom. Early Christian father quotes. The Eiffel Tower is a tekken and a pyramid. Yes, in France, he's going to say that the Eiffel Tower is a tekken and a pyramid. So those are some other points of contention, things that you need to look out for. I am going to now into video 2, and we will make more progress in video 2 and deal with his arguments. Let him deal with his own arguments.
Or those people who know what I'm referring to will know what I'm referring to. And it sounds strange for a historian to speak like that, but it seems that in his travels, he also went through the mystery system. And so there were some things that were actually things that you could see in public, but until you were initiated, you would not have a deeper understanding of them. And it was not for you to simply just share the deeper meaning in public. If you want to be initiated, you could. But if you share it publicly with everyone, then it no longer has the same reference. And the individuals who receive it may not necessarily value it the way that you do. Now, when you look at the mystery system, you'll also see that some institutions have tried to incorporate them into what they do. So if you look at what the Masons do as they go through their degrees, they are trying to reference the ancient mystery system. If you look at what fraternities and sororities do, they're trying to say, we are trying to recreate the ancient mystery system. I would argue that there are large gaps in what they learn. And part of that is because we have lost the roots. So now the tree is still there, but it's slowly withering. We have to reconnect the tree with its roots in order for it to bear fruit. So there are people who are attempting to do it, but we have to do much more work for this to take place. Now, I should say to you that Herodotus comes to Kemet as a traveler in the 4th century BCE, somewhat before Greece takes over Kemet, which happens at around 332 BCE, before the Common Era is what BCE stands for. So let's not just listen to Herodotus. What else are the other ancient authors telling us? Let's go to Diodorus Siculus, who comes about 2.5, 3 centuries after Herodotus, and disagrees with Herodotus a lot on a lot of things, by the way. But he says there is only difference in names between the festivals of Bacchus and those of Osiris, between the mysteries of Isis and those of Demeter. And so they're telling you that these names could be substituted with Asar and Ast. But what they did is they reinterpreted these great stories according to their own cultural mores. And the Kemetic people did not have a problem with that. Why? Because they never argued that these things were occurring in history. It was myth. They said you could retell a myth. The point is not to focus simply on the outer myth. Today in spiritual systems, we argue about the outer myth, when in actuality, there's a greater story that is told that none of us are actually tapping. And that's a problem with the need to recontextualize spiritual forms as well. Let's listen to Plutarch. Plutarch was clearly an initiate of the mystery system of Ast. But interestingly, he writes more about what was happening in the Kemetic temple than we found in ancient Kemet itself. There was a point where much of what was in Kemet was destroyed intentionally. Intentionally. After the Greeks come into Kemet, Alexander, who actually does something, he revered Kemet. He does something interesting, but then in hindsight, it was damaging. He takes all of the great texts from all over the temples from Kemet and puts them in one place, in the city that was named for him, Alexandria. And then when Alexandria falls, much of that has been lost. And so that's the problem that we have. There's some things that we cannot find, but we have to go to places, people whose works were distributed in other parts of the world to find those as well. And so Plutarch says it is proper to identify Osiris with Dionysus. Now it's interesting that his statement is the briefest, and it's because he was an initiate. So while he clearly wants to tell you something, there's a lot of stuff he just says, I'm not going to share. He actually says it. Imagine reading a history book and someone says, I know this, but I'm not going to tell you. That's what Plutarch does. But he does write a piece that is known as, in English, on Isis and Osiris. And that piece comes into the Common Era. He writes this around 46 to about 120 CE, the Common Era. So I've gone from about 400 BCE up to about 120 CE. So we're talking about authors talking about the importance of Kemet on their traditions over a course of 500 years, after Kemet had already fallen. And so this is what actually occurs. Now let's look at Asar as he is interpreted through a different cultural lens. Because when you understand that he becomes interpreted through a different cultural lens, you'll be able to recognize where some of the stories came from and where they are today. This man that you see here is Ptolemy the First Soter. Does everyone know what Soter stands for? Savior. Savior. So he called himself Savior. He is actually a childhood friend of Alexander. And so he is left in charge of Kemet. When Alexander goes off to conquer the rest of the world, eventually Alexander dies, and Ptolemy has uprooted himself entirely from Greece and lives with his family in Kemet, and they create the dynasty of Greek rulers that are sometimes just known as the Ptolemies. Someone tell me who the best known Ptolemaic ruler of Kemet was. Okay, I'm just checking to see if you guys are doing your work. Cleopatra, which Cleopatra? The seventh. The seven. There were 7 of them. We say Cleopatra, but there were 7. Cleopatra the seventh is a Ptolemaic ruler. She's the last Ptolemaic ruler. After she is not in control of Kemet anymore, foreign rulers, particularly Rome comes in, and Rome simply decides that they're going to run it almost like a colony. So they're not going to be there, but they're still going to be in control. When the Greek rulers came in, they actually uprooted their families and lived there. Cleopatra VII's family had been in for 300 years when she came to reign. 300 years. So certainly while she was a Ptolemaic ruler, she would have also considered herself Kemetic as well. She is arguably a priestess in the shrine of Ast. And she's the only Ptolemaic ruler to actually learn the Kemetic language. So she really, really, I think that much is made about her sexual dalliances. And it's unfortunate that when we tell history, when it comes to women, we had to just talk about who they were sleeping with. She was very interesting character. Very, very interesting character. So Ptolemy the First claims that there is great battle going on in the streets of Alexandria. This is true. And the battles were going on between the Greeks that were now living there, the new Jewish folks, and the even newer Christians to some degree, but they would come a bit later. The native people in Kemet were also part of that dispute. They were all jockeying for power. If you want to see an interesting depiction, it's not entirely historical, but it's a really good depiction that where it comes to life of this debate and this battle that occurs in this period after the fall of Kemet. Look at the movie Agora. It was a wonderful film, I thought. I'll tell you as a historian that some of it was ahistorical, but it brought some of the images to life. So you'll actually see the end of what the Greek and Roman world called paganism and how it ends. Most people are not familiar with the story, and it's a bloody one. It's people died. Whole scale groups of people were wiped off. Why? So that certain groups could say that they had the only religious story that was important. That's not Jabari Osaze interpretation. That is the truth. And as you read it, you'll get a sense of what occurred during that time. So in order to calm these battles that were going on in the streets of Alexandria, Soter does something interesting. He creates a deity out of Asar. So he uses the name Asar, and he also uses another symbol for Asar, actually a symbol of Ptah, but he thought of it as a symbol of Asar. The bull that the Greeks called the Apis bull. We called it the Hapi bull, named after the river. But they called it the Apis bull. So they take the word, whenever you hear is at the end, you're probably hearing a Greek rendition, by the way. That's a little thing you can use when you're looking at names in Kemet and wondering whether they're the authentic names. But they take Asar and Apis, and they also use Greek imagery, and they create Serapis. And so Serapis actually becomes the new deity who is a version of Asar. Now, folks, there are some that make the argument that Christianity is actually the worship of Serapis. I think that is too simplistic an argument, but it would be absolutely impossible for you not to acknowledge that they had great influence from the worship of Serapis. First of all, just look at the character they created. This is the character. We say this, Michelangelo's uncle, and well, I think he got it from someplace too. This is the image that was created to image this new Greek version of a Tsar. And in actuality, the Roman Emperor Hadrian, who rules from 76 to 138 CE, actually says that the Christians are worshipers of Serapis. He says, those who worship Serapis are Christians, and those who call themselves the bishop of Christ. So he says they're worshiping Serapis. So it's not just that you might think it because they look similar. At least some of the ancient sources seem to say that this is the origin of Jesus Christ. Now, some of you will take this, will actually, I don't know if the folks in this room will take this difficultly, but this is the reason why I was being heckled yesterday at the museum. This is a very challenging concept. What happens in early Christianity, I call it echoes of the 2nd and 3rd century. When you look at the biblical stories, you find parallels all throughout the region, starting in Kemet and going all throughout the Mediterranean. And if you look at the fact that the story that's being told of Jesus was told several times, thousands of years earlier, you can come to the fact, you can come to 2 points. One, this is a difficult one, put your seatbelts on, that Jesus Christ did not exist in a person. Or 2, if he did exist as a person, they at least took other myths and combined it with his story. So either of those are things that you could argue. That is a very difficult argument. Saying that in public might get you hurt. Why? Because the folks that came later in Christianity sought greatly to create their story as a historical story rather than a mythical story, because they believed that if they were going to say that what they were worshiping was more important than all the stuff that came for thousands of years before, they had to say, well, I know you were doing something similar, but ours is the truth. We're going to give you some quotes from actual early Christian fathers who say exactly that. Let's look a little bit more at Serapis. It was called the Good Shepherd. This is an older version of Serapis you see here. He was known as the Sacrificial Bull. Of course, we know that Jesus was called the Sacrificial Lamb. We could talk about archaeoastrology and say why one was a bull and one was a lamb, but that would take a little bit of time here. And he's symbolically sacrificed for our sins every year. So he had to die to rectify us of our sins. The temple of Serapis is called the Serapeum, and the destruction of the Serapeum in 391 AD is considered by many ancient authors to be the death of paganism, the death of these mystery traditions, the death of these earth and celestial-based traditions. The Serapeum was a great temple in Alexandria, and when it fell due to a crowd of angry early Christians, and the stories of what happened during that period are just a story of a philosopher and mathematician by the name of Hypatia. Because she refuses to actually be baptized and to go into Christianity, the mob captures her, and they don't have knives, but what they do have is seashells. So they literally flay all of the flesh from her skin, dismember her, and take her body through the streets to let people know that Christianity is here to stay. How many of you have heard that story from your pulpit? That's history. That happened. Does that mean it's an indictment of the whole faith? Of course not. That's not what I'm saying. But what I'm saying is, in order to put things in context, you have to know what happened. That's what context is. And if you're only reading one book, you can't properly get the proper context. Okay. By the way, the man that was credited with destroying Serapeum was Theophilus of Alexandria. He's the one that led the mob to actually destroy the temple. Ost then becomes prominent throughout the world, really, particularly through the Roman world. In fact, you're seeing an image of a statue that's at the Metropolitan Museum. We looked at it yesterday, of Aphrodite and Ost. Now, why do I say that? Why do historians call this Aphrodite Ost? What symbol tells us that she is a version of Ost as well? You're both saying it. The horns in the solar disk right here. So that's why they say this is Aphrodite Ost. Now you might say, well, why did these people seek to retell these stories and make these people look like them? The answer is simple. Powerful people always depict the divine force in their own image. Because if this is a story about what you're supposed to do, not arguing about history, this is a story about what you're supposed to do, it's easier for you to recognize that this is what you're supposed to do if the character looks like you. If Ost looks like your mother, then maybe you'll think, well, am I Heru? And if you believe those things, it means that you'll do certain things. And so this is one of the important things that we have to recognize as Kemetic spirituality becomes reinterpreted into the rest of the world of the Mediterranean and outside the Mediterranean. As I said before, temples of Ost are far-flung as France and Germany. It's said that they've recently found a temple that is consecrated to her in Russia, India. Here's an image of a Roman version of Ost once again. And you see her with her sistrum, the chacheta, the tiet knot, and her urn. And that means that she is, they say that this is a version of Ost, but I think she may also be a priest of Ost as well. I've already told you that one of the largest temples was in France, but here's something else you should know. France has a very interesting relationship with Kemet. What is this? Someone tell me what this is. The Eiffel Tower, a Tekken. It's not just a Tekken, brother. The Eiffel Tower is one of the most amazing constructions in the world. But because France has a love affair with Kemet, it is actually a combination of the Tekken and the Merkut. That's what the structure is. It influenced them to create their greatest work. So understanding the context hopefully will also influence you to do your greatest work, to do that which you were put here for. So that is hopefully where this story will take you as well. Now let's talk about some of the other stories briefly that get transitioned into the Mediterranean world. These are the three of the four best known ones. Certainly Dionysus. Now, when you see depictions of Dionysus today, they show him as a guy that's like, he's drunk, he's like a bar hop. I mean, it's really interesting to depict him that way. When in actuality, what we should be taking away from it is, hey, wait a minute. Dionysus is connected to wine. Well, so is Jesus. I wonder what that means. They're actually images. I meant to take you all to the vase at the Metropolitan Museum yesterday, but the vase was moved for conservation. You'll actually see priestesses of Dionysus mixing wine on an altar. So this concept had its origins in Kemet, and it filters through the rest of the world. Dionysus, they say, is a god of wine. He's much more than a god of wine. Mithra comes from the area around Syria, Persia, and he's also another very important character. And then we have Attis. Folks, if you want to do additional research on the mystery systems, look up four names. Look up Dionysus, Mithra, Attis, and Eleusinian, because the Eleusinian mysteries also were well documented and describe the story as it goes into the rest of the world. Now, I've told you, some of what was going on in Kemet, we're now still trying to piece together, because some of the great texts that Kemet has left to us are actually just descriptions of ceremonies. So instead of getting a story about who did what, when, and how they did it, you'll get, put your leg here, this is how you regain your head, this is the how you maintain your body in the afterlife. So it's really a description of ceremonies. It's the actual text that describes what influences ceremonies in most places has to be pieced together from those sources. The later sources, because they were in some ways learning this for the first time, the first thing they did, and of course they're coming forth in another era where more nations were literate, the first thing they did is start to write things down. So you should read what they said about these great stories and find them again. they're individuals who are attempting to use these stories. I know I went to a self-help group once, an incredible group that was supposed to teach us how to become better individuals. You might have heard it. It's in New York, but all over the world. It's called the Landmark Forum, if you've seen it before. And as I went through the Landmark Forum, I raised my hand once and I said, so this is the mystery system. And the guy looked at me like, we don't want to give any titles. Everyone in the room didn't even know what I was talking about. So obviously,
you heard this a lot in this particular bill. And hold on, my bad. And if you just look up Egyptian mystery systems or Egyptian mystery schools, you can try to find a source to qualify it, but you'll find this lecture from Bobby Hemmett. I don't know who this person is, but you're going to find something from several people. This guy, Richard Smith, UFO teacher interview, Egyptian mystery, forgotten books, some not so qualified stuff. So you would most likely like to start here. And like I said before, if you have George M. James work, then that's going to be, you know, some other parts of where you would get this stuff from. But, you know, a lot of this stuff is going to lead you down a rabbit hole. So, which goes back to the points of contention here. I really didn't add the mystery stuff in here because this is something that's already been dealt with. And, you know, the Eiffel Tower is a Tekken in the pyramid. So y'all can really enjoy that. You know what I mean? Can I find archaeology on this? So it's designed by Auguste Bartholdi and offered to the United States as a gift from France, celebrated 100 years. But there's a whole nother story of that. We probably have to go and let me see if it's on their website. Oh, hold on. Legal. But we probably got to go and dig up other information regarding the whole thing that he mentions about the Eiffel Tower. As you can see, this was the steps to get to it. So the beginning of it. There were the workers, construction schedule, took a couple of years. The plan to build a 300 meters high was conceived as part of a preparation of the World Affairs in 1889. You're going to be very hard pressed to try to substantiate that claim that was made in regard to the Eiffel Tower's existence. And then you go through the blueprint and all of that stuff. But he made the claim, so he would have to demonstrate and show the evidence for the claim. There's a lot of claims that are actually made in the video. Well, this video is actually done because he just talks the rest of the time. Oh, hold up. No, he don't. Let me Yeah, he goes back to that particular slide, but he really doesn't say much more than what he says here before he transcends into pretty much another part of his lecture where he talks about the biblical excerpts referring to the sun as a divine force, and then providing those excerpts here. So let me bag it back a little bit, because this last little couple minutes is interesting.
Jesus Christ, what does he have behind his head? The sun. They're telling you that he's connected to the sun. All you have to do is read the Bible with now awakened eyes, and you'll see that all throughout it, they're describing him as the sun. All throughout the text. I mean, even when he's baptized by John the Baptist. John the Baptist is usually considered, because he's the last prophet of the Old Testament, he's considered the old son.
So there you have it on that one. And that's pretty much what he does. So following this particular part of the actual lecture, he goes into Heru and his 12 disciples. John 3:30, the sun as it goes into the winter solstice. So we come back to the winter solstice. Not in the crucifixion claim, as he stated before, but pretty much here. And then Heru died to atone for our sins. And then two important quotes from Saint Augustine's quote and Justinian Martyr's quote that he uses in his entire argument. And those are pretty much questionable. I do want to get to the Heru and the 12 disciples, because that is important to us all. And hold on one second. Yeah, I don't care.
And so,
hold on. I don't care nothing about no John the Baptist. That's other people.
So finally, what are we saying has to happen? We have to come to a new understanding. Once you know, you must do. You ever feel sometimes that you're being beaten in the head by life? You know what I say to people when they say that sort of thing to me as a priest? I say, it's because you have a mission and you're not fulfilling it. So life is going to continue to slap you around until you follow the path that you were meant to follow. We have to now put our spiritual traditions back onto the right course. And now that you know, you must do. It's almost like Morpheus and the red and blue pill. He didn't tell Neo what was going to happen when he took the pill. But then after that, he was like, wow, you just told me the whole world was different. Couldn't you have told me that before you gave me the 2 pills? Well, guess what? You chose a pill when you came and sat down here today. Clearly, this is a clarion call for action. Listen to what Tom Harper says. This is the quote that I love that Anika does not. He says, myth is not that which is not true, but which is always true. History is that which was once true. Myth is more powerful than history. History is about what somebody did who was not you. Myth is about what you must do in order to be who you must be. And so if we re-mythologize Christianity, Judaism, Islam, and follow the old traditions that come from Kemet, its original source, we can only be stronger. So this lecture is not about denigrating Christianity at all. It's not. I'm past that in my development. I do believe that if you think that you're supposed to be in another house, that we can help you find that house. But if you believe Christianity is a house you're supposed to be in, what you must do is reform the house. It needs some restoration. You have basements that you've never been in. It's time to return to the source and find that cornerstone which you yourself have rejected. And in doing that, you will create a stronger tradition, a stronger nation, a stronger people. That is the only way forward. It's the only way forward as we come up against a time where we continually see Judaism and Islam coming to conflict, which infiltrates the whole world. How do we change that? By re-mythologizing our traditions and recognizing we're arguing about what color someone's shirt was, and not even talking about what that person did or who that person was. It's ridiculous. So we have to get past this. And so this is, as I said, an important task of recontextualization. And we also have to come to a point where we have created respect for the natural and celestial traditions. We must do this. And we must restore Africa's proper historical dominance. That's not to say that because I'm a black guy that I think Africa is great and nobody else is. Everyone has their contributions to the planet. And guess what? The contributions of people in other regions, because I'm a human being, also benefit me. And so saying that Africa did some wonderful things doesn't mean that we have to say that Europe didn't. Why must we continue to think so shallowly? But we have to acknowledge that these traditions, that unfortunately people of African descent, the descendants of those people that created these traditions, do not have power in, has to change. We have to now say this story must be retold. And that doesn't mean that we're excluding anyone. It means we have to now incorporate everyone, because the story of Asasar and Heru is not one that occurs via color, race, class. It is a universal story for everyone. We have to forge paths towards true acceptance of ancient traditions and focus on the great similarities rather than the differences. And that's the only way that humanity will return to its proper position. With that, I hope that I've handled my assignment today.
All right, so that is actually outside of some footage that I ain't showing the bulk of what it is, but I need to find the 12 crucified part, and I ain't got my other laptop open to go to the exact timestamp. Early fathers struggle with obvious contradictions. Oh yeah, he talks about the contradictions in here because of the martyrs. That's why I had those two quotes. So there was those two quotes, and then
very, very interesting. For when we say that Dionysus arose again and ascended into heaven, is it not evidence that the devil has imitated this prophecy? What is he saying here? Justin Martyr is getting so much flack. Christianity doesn't stay where it is. It matures. It matures after this period where they're juggling with the other faiths in the area. And it actually branches out into many other faiths. Sometimes when I tell this story, some Christians say, well, this is an indictment on the Roman Catholic Church.
Hold on. I gotta get to something. This one he was in Kemet, but he don't say it in this video. It's that pose right here. Show the pose, bro. He finna show the pose. But he don't say it in this particular video. And there's another video I got that I didn't upload for a reason, but that's pretty much the bulk of Jabari's argument. And that's how he tries to tie everything into ancient Kemet. His origin, I mean, he's got a lot to prove. and he hasn't updated any of the information that he has had in this build. Like I said in part 1, this stuff is old Jabari. And as you seen what Ben said, that he sells the video. He's selling this. It's $50 on his website to this day. And a lot of that, he hasn't updated any of the information in this particular video. There's no part 2. There's no upgrade to the video. None of that. It is still information that he's selling. So you have to be very careful about what you're purchasing. You also have to be very careful about the information that you're receiving. And that's the gist of all of that. As you've seen, I had some other videos on here that I actually had darked out. And you know, the way when you get the video to upload and all of that, we'll have to get a lot more rigorous to defeat. If you're looking at this from the perspective of the debate, it's a popularity contest. So if it's more people in the building who are proponents of this so-called Kemetic spirituality, or who are members of the Shrine of Ma'at or the Shrine of Ptah, and they all have their Kemetic garbs on, whatever they, whatever the case may be, Garfield will have a hard time winning the audience live. The only way that Garfield can win a debate against Jabari is on the playback, scholastically on the playback. Will he be able to throw some daggers and have a hell of an argument against Jabari based on I don't even know the title of the debate, but yeah, he will. He will. Because he knows all of dude's arguments. He ain't changed nothing. What he presented here, he's already done live. That's what I was trying to tell Ben. All of this information is the same information that's free on Sonetta TV. Like the Serapis stuff and all of that, that's nothing new. He does a better job at arguing that stuff because I don't think that he's going to find too many people who care about the whole Serapis thing. But he does mention the 12 disciples, Ra having 12 disciples in the whole 9 yards. He does say that, and I should play that, but it's boring to me at this particular juncture to keep dealing with dude stuff. And that's really the end of it at all. Feel goodership. I mean, you can say that. Pure Black said it feels like Sunday. What up, Brother Matt? I know you just came in. So again, let me get back to me. So basically, this is how I look at what he basically said. The dangers of outdated sources can lead one down a lonely road built around misinformation, occultism, and disingenuously taking advantage of one's ignorance. Regurgitating 19th century scholarship is just outright sloppy, especially with the amount of available data that we have today. With all the comparisons shown, no substantial evidence exists from the Egyptians themselves. It's actually disrespectful to compare the Abrahamic traditions to that of the African traditions. The Egyptians left their legacy behind. It is up to us to correct the mishaps and move our people forward with more credible information that will stand the test of time. So what I was looking for in this particular presentation by him and others, because I can go and pull up the Bantu argument, right? I know many of y'all ain't familiar with that at all, but y'all ain't even see my screen. I ain't need to. I basically was just saying some stuff. But if I pull up the argument he had with Bantu, hold up. What's his name? Vince Bantu. Let me get back to the thing. Let me try to pull it up. I believe their argument was shoot, how many arguments have they had? Hold on. Let me share my screen. Well, people got up out of here when I stopped talking about that Jabari stuff. Is he still alive? But look, is Christianity a copy of Kemetic religion? So for people that's like, has he changed his position or anything in that regard? I'm about to show y'all real quick because I was asked this before. And it just so happened to be that I actually watched this.
They're very clearly and very intentionally. And I think that some of what he may be doing here is intentionally deceptive. He is merging periods of time that should not be merged. He started to talk to you about Diocletian massacring Christians and said, well, how could that be an example how Rome is controlling Christianity? He's not telling you that that happens before Rome decides to control Christianity. He knows this. You don't. Don't let him flim-flam you, family. Regardless of the tradition you belong to, you should be inured against that is what is not true. He knows this. He's talked to you very eloquently about Constantine. Diocletian is when? Before or after? What? Say that?
Well, you go ahead.
No, go ahead, say it.
No, you go ahead.
I'm going to let you say it.
I'm going to let you go ahead and talk.
Okay. I wonder why. Because he's before. He is giving you Donald Trump with a Native American headdress because he knows you haven't done the scholarship he's done. Dear brother Dr. Bantu, I have. I'm sitting here listening to you, knowing what you're saying is deceptive. By the way, you have given us lots of great slides with citations on them. The thing that I'm confused about is it sounds sometimes like your citations actually support my argument, not yours. He shows you that someone is using Heru and Jesus and saying, oh, these are similar. One is thousands of years earlier. So to that practitioner, something sounded similar. And then he says that people in the ancient world do not actually say, I'm going somewhere, family. I'm going right into my presentation, but I have to inoculate you against some of what you've heard. One of the things that is happening here is that he's making claims, no citations, by the way. He just says in the ancient world, people actually didn't say you're copying us. I'm sure, I heard the brother talk about St. Augustine. He knows this quote. Don't be disingenuous. That which is known as the Christian religion existed amongst the ancient.
Okay, so let me stop right here. Because I was asked this question, and I just want to show people, has he moved? Or has he updated his scholarship? Do you see the difference? Do you see the difference? Do you see the difference? It's the same slide. It's the same slide. There's no changing. It's the same slide. That's not it. That's not it. It's the same slides. He has not changed his position. Same stuff. But you wouldn't know it because you hadn't seen this. So when I said that, you know, when my brother said that he's selling something, right? He's giving it to you free through arguments with Christians. The same information. There you go. I ain't done. I can go further. You think I'm making this up? I can go back to the other videos. I'm not making this up. You know what I'm saying? I don't want nobody to feel no type of way. Hold up. Let me go back to my points of contention. Well, I think it's here. I'm answering another question for my dear brother. He knows who I'm referring to because he asked me this earlier. Look. It's the same image, right? There go the image. There go the image. I ain't gonna make nothing up. But that Black Madonna stuff is the same information here. Watch. Come on, put his slides back up here. Look. That old Trinity. See? When I showed y'all what I showed y'all, it was for good reason. Because y'all seen the Trinity. I don't think it's in this one. I got to go back. My point is the slides have not changed. Is a Trinity in here? My dog snoring up a storm. Nope, ain't in that. X out. Man, where I get this thing at? Oh yeah, here you go. Here you go. Nah, that's where he said the son was crucified. But look, there go your image. Pause. See that? It's the same slides. He hasn't changed anything. It's the same stuff. Look. You seen Heru. You seen this pop up. Look at it. Look what it says. Command myth and their Christian counterparts. He has not. And I'm speaking to my bro who tapped in listening. He just ain't saying nothing in the chat. But it's the same slides that he's already used years ago. Look. Watch him. Same slides. So it don't matter if I play the videos. It's the same stuff. This is what he used. Hold on 1 second, y'all. 1 second. So, to my bro who asked me, has he updated his scholarship? Has he done anything different? I'm going to show you again that this is the same slide that he argues with Vince Bantu. This is, y'all seen this slide because he says this is when the son was crucified. Let's see what he's saying in this debate.
The adoration of the people. This is from the Chronicle Pascal from actually the 6th century CE. Citation. So that you should understand that people understood that that was happening in Kemetic temples. In fact, Heru is usually born on December 25th. Here's another citation. Every year, the temples of Horus presented to worshipers in midwinter, on or about December 25th, a scenic model of the birth of Horus. The Roman writer Macrobius adds to that the young god was a symbol for the rebirth of the sun at that date. The whole world by the year 1 AD was familiar with the Egyptian statues of pictures of Isis and her divine maid Horus in her arms. That's Joseph McCade from the Story of Religious Controversy. His birth is heralded by 3 kings.
Stop. This information was all disc 1. Some of this other information he came out with was in disc 2. These are the arguments. Look. This is the same presentation that he used from a long time ago to argue with Christians. He changed this. Y'all don't remember seeing this? Okay. Okay, cool. Y'all don't remember seeing it. Look, there go the other image that he used. I can't make this up. Yep, you just heard him talking. There go the other slide that he uses. I can't make this up. In his debate with old boy. And he used this other slide that shows, but that was in another video. You can see it right here. He used it right here. He never updated his scholarship. Now I got to go back and get the other video so that I can show y'all where he did the whole shebang bang. Thizzle. I'm not making this up. When I said he did this stuff in pieces, he did it in pieces. Look, he go to slide. Look, he go to slide this video too. So he go to slide for that what we saw with the Black Madonna. There go that whole slide. Let me go back to his debate with old boy. I know what I'm talking about. You just got to know how this stuff go. All right, so look. There you go. Boom. Boom. Now show the Pope. Show the Pope, Sean. There with the Pope. It's the same information that he used. So when people ask me, has he updated his scholarship? He had time to update his scholarship and he refused to do it. That ain't it. Look, y'all seen this already. It is the same thing that he sold people for $50. It is the same. It's the same information, man. Same information. And I knew this because I seen that debate with him and old boy. Look, y'all just seen this image. I cannot make this up. The same image. It's the same image. Watch. He uses all of this. This, listen to me, man. I know I'm not trying to like get into all of that because, like I said, I don't care nothing about personalities and people and the whole 9 yards. I'm gonna come back to this image in a minute because y'all saw this in this 3. Y'all saw that. Y'all saw this. This was already shit that he's done. Already. Look at it. Same information on the slide. There's nothing different. The slide is the same thing. My bad. Same thing. Son of God, archetype, divinity. Son of God, archetype. There was no update in the scholarship in the debate against Vince Ben 2. None. I got all these videos right here for slides that he's actually used. It's all coming from the same place. He charged the whole $50 for something that he provided for free. So now let me go back and let me do this one more time, just in case y'all forgot about this. In case y'all forgot, we literally just went through this a little bit. All right. He felt confident about them slides. He felt super confident about them. On this. What was that? This one? Yeah, he felt super confident. What up, Savior? Hold on, I gotta try to find this other slide that he got right here. Nope, that ain't it either. There it is. Boom. Pause. All right. So again, this was at the beginning of the show, and then there it is again. It's the same information over and over. It's what he used. My bad. It's the same information over and over. Like literally. Now, did he leave out stuff? Absolutely. But that was me trying to get people to understand that, hold on, he added this image because this image wasn't there. But I'm going to go and show you again unless I already got it up. See if I got it up. Same slide. See? Boom, right there. He just added a picture for this slide. And then he added some words. He expanded it a little bit on this one. But I probably got to go to the other video and get into that. But he added this misogyny in the Bible. I would have to go back and this one of them other discs, but this is new in his argument. And yeah, because it's got Deuteronomy in there and Timothy. So this is what he added to that. So 90% of what he presented against Bantu was something that he sold for $50 to everybody who purchased it. That is correct. He does misrepresent information, but this is not my thing to actually point out. My thing is to show basically how people are, how they, the disingenuousness of their behaviors and how they drop stuff. But yeah, so that's to answer my brother's question that he asked me on a previous conversation that I had. Has he updated the information? The answer to your question would be no. I basically showed you a 2019 debate he had with Vince Bantu. He used the same stuff. He's that confident in that material that he would have that same presentation already available to debate the same information. And that's a belief of his, which goes back to what I said initially. And it's just a lot of disingenuousness in what he was saying. He is of the belief. That is his belief, and he is entrenched in that belief. And that's how that stuff goes. All the way. But nah, man, I wanted to kind of get that. I don't care nothing about people's personal feelings and none of that. I don't, whatever. You know what I'm saying? I ain't doing this to help Garfield or none of that. It has nothing to do with Garfield. He had no idea that I was. I mean, he knew years ago that I had some stuff I've been sitting on, but it is what it is. I just dropped the link in the chat, man. I'm gonna give about like 20 minutes. I got about another 15 to 20 minutes. Anybody want to come on or speak to something directly or get your feelings out, it's up to you. I don't care. If you probably know more about what's going on than I do regarding the other side of all of this stuff. But like I said, when I was having a conversation with that brother that was on Garfield's channel today, when I hopped on, when I heard the stuff that I heard, he said, what's the problem with X, Y, and Z? This is a problem. Yeah, recycling pseudoisms is the thing. And that has to be pointed out. Like, none of y'all would know that this was his stuff until you're shown his stuff. That's why I play what I play. I really don't care nothing about all the other stuff. He's already presented information before to people at no charge. And this is what he was selling people, literally, on the muscle. And if he's still selling this, then that would be disingenuous. That's a hustle in itself. Why would you want to sell the same information that you are using to argue with other Christians? Now, I haven't confirmed this, but maybe he has presented this elsewhere. From what I'm being told, maybe it's presented elsewhere. Yeah, it was $50. Go on his website, you'll see it for yourself. The African origins of Christianity is $50. I don't know. Maybe he went on there and marked it down, but it was a lecture that he did a long time ago, and because the lecture was old, people needed to know if he's updated that information, and so therefore I pulled out the Vince Bantu debate, and then I was like, hold on, he used this in the debate against Vince Bantu, and I knew this, but y'all didn't know this, and no one would see when I got done playing whatever it is that I was playing, that those slides would come up. And I believe he used 10 or how many other slides he used. I think it was about 10 or 12 slides from that lecture, that 2-hour lecture. So there was a lot inside of that lecture that's not in his argument, but it was there for that debate because he is of the belief that Christianity has African origins or is rooted in African traditions, more so along the Remech. Yeah, he charged 50, bro. Hold on, let me see if I got. I think I threw away the case that not the case, but I think I might have threw away the receipt. But yeah, it's right here. So if he's still selling this, you know what I'm saying, that would be a disingenuous thing. He should just either mark it down or do something different with it. I mean, since he's using it to debate Christians. Yeah, well, it was bought and I bought it and someone gave me my money back for it. I'll just say that. I bought it and somebody gave me my money back. But yes, I just think that there's a lot of craziness going on with that, man. So it is what it is at the end of the day. It is what it is. I'm gonna drop the link again, man. Anybody want to join? If not, you know what I'm saying, I'm gonna cut corners and get to working on this thing that I'm working on. Oh, I need to transfer that information. Hold up. Oh yeah. Man, I ain't no bully, bro. The information is the information. Yep, it's the information. So there you have it. I'm at work, King. Maybe tomorrow if you do something. Nah, I'm gonna be quiet for a while. I won't be doing too much of anything. Probably be a while. I don't know. I might do something next week. I might not. But for those of you who actually paid attention to it, and I know it's like 2 hours. It's too long. But yeah, he he did recycle that presentation. And it is what it is at the end of the day with what he got going on. And unfortunately, that's how it's going to be. Well, look like ain't nobody hopping on, man. So I'm going to slide out. Well, I mean, yeah, I'm going to go on and slide out in this. Y'all enjoy y'all evening.